to Discuss With Us podcast, where we are unpacking the world through a Christian lens. I am your host, Darcy Durkowski, along with my husband, Brian, and our intention is to pose topics, trending and otherwise, and unpack them with the help of some research, insights from our different backgrounds, and even some listener input in a way that is thought-provoking and entertaining. So get comfortable, grab your favorite beverage, and discuss with us.
Welcome back to another episode of Discuss With Us. Darce, how you doing?
I'm good.
It's our wedding anniversary.
Yeah. Tired from cleaning up the storm, but we could have some of it done.
If you live in Texas, we've had some of the craziest weather I've ever lived through, I think.
Yeah. It was crazy. But yes, it's our anniversary.
Yes.
Happy anniversary, dear.
Happy anniversary to you too. 6 years.
6 years. So it's good that we're talking about love languages, our second part today.
Yes, finally got you guys part 2 coming.
Yes.
And we've got 2 interviews, and so you don't have to listen to us talk very long. We're going to jump right into it with them. And just kind of, so the last love languages, if you haven't listened to it, go back, I think 2 episodes ago, and we kind of talk about part 1 of them. And this week, we interviewed a newlywed couple and a plus 30 years married couple to get kind of unique perspectives of how different couples, you got our take, but now some other couples, how they are using this information. So our first couple that we're going to have are the newlyweds. And
newlyweds, less than 2 years anyway.
Well, they're still in puppy love stage, right?
Okay, well.
So are we.
Exactly.
Good save there. So the first couple is Aaron and Rachel Boer. Aaron has been one of my best friends. He was a best man in my wedding. Mm-hmm. I've known him since I think we were 11 years old in Mr. Boobin's science class. That's where we got our start. And him and Rachel got married. I think it's coming up on 2 years for them. I know it was super hot when they got married, so it must be close. So we're going to jump right in with them.
Yeah.
Joining us now is our first guests for the love languages. We've got the newlywed game with Aaron and Rachel Boer. How are you doing?
Doing good. How about you?
We're good, Brian. Yeah.
Dr. Rachel, as we just discussed.
Yes.
Aaron said she needed to be addressed as doctor.
Yes, thank you so much for doing that.
You don't go to school for 8 years to just be
That's
a
right.
Mrs.,
That's right.
Yeah, there's a lot of money involved with that.
Absolutely.
All right, so we're talking about love languages here. Tell us a little about, first of all, when did y'all get married?
It'll be 2 years next month.
Okay, 2 years next month. That's right, because I've seen recently, that was on Dax's refrigerator.
Yes.
He has the photo booth pictures from that night, which is one of my all-time favorite pictures of Brian.
Yeah, I had a really good time there.
Right before the picture snapped, I said, "Open your eyes, Brian." And so in the picture, you can just imagine.
You knew it was going to be a good night. I changed shirts like right after the wedding.
He got comfortable.
It was very hot. A lot of people changed shirts that night.
It was a good time.
Yeah.
So okay, almost 2 years then. Okay. All right, so we're talking about love languages. Tell us a little about your familiarity with love languages.
I think I learned about them whenever we were engaged, and we started talking about them a little bit together.
Mm-hmm.
I found them very interesting and learned what mine are, learned what I think yours are. And I just think it's important to learn your partner's love languages, how you like to receive love, how I think you like to receive love can be very different things.
I agree.
I totally thought Aaron was going to be the one who pushed this.
She said we were talking about them. I was more or less being told what they were.
It's typically how it goes.
And what mine were.
This is our second episode of this, and I still don't completely understand them all, so.
Well, it's funny that you say that about what Aaron thinks his is and what you think it is, because I feel that way with Brian. I feel like he has an idea of what he thinks it is, and...
No, we took a test, so we proved it.
And we did kind of hash it out and somewhat come to an agreement, but what he said initially, I was like,
Yeah, as it's noted in the previous Love Languages episode, you can go back. By discussing this, we got in a little bit of a scuttle over it, so...
We did.
So tread carefully if you have not talked about this
I
yet.
thought that my love language was fighting, but I learned that that's not actually what it was.
That's not one of the options.
Yeah.
It's a different, not Gary Chapman, it's a different series.
Yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like Rachel kind of introduced them to you a little bit. Was that your first?
Yeah, I haven't. I wasn't reading a lot of stuff where I'm gonna come across that.
Yeah.
So yeah, Rachel definitely told me about him.
When she told you, did you kind of buy in? Like.
Yeah, it made sense to me.
Sense?
I think. Yeah, for sure.
All right, so tell us your respective love languages, at least from each perspective.
Do you want me to tell you what I think his are?
Yes, please. Yes.
So I definitely think Aaron's big one is quality time.
Okay.
He very much values like spending time together. Like if I'm off work, we're out doing stuff together. Or just a very big one is if he's trying to talk to me and I am on my phone, he will get so mad.
Yeah, I'm like that.
Yeah.
Like that's just a very basic one. And like recently, like we've started doing a lot of healthy things together. And he got into bike riding over the last like 4 or 5 months, and so
we call it cycling, but
cycling.
Sure, yeah.
Excuse me.
Just don't ever ride out in Chapel Hill. My in-laws will
Run you over potentially.
Good to know. But I mean, since I know that is one of his love languages, I try to like take up certain hobbies of his too, and so about 2 weeks ago I got a bike as well.
Oh, okay.
Hey.
Nice. Are you liking it so far?
It has not gone very great so far. It's been a little bit of an issue, but we're getting there. We just
Is it hard remembering how to ride?
It did take a second, but no, that wasn't the issue. It's just
like distances, or what is it, or speed?
Oh no, just my tire keeps going flat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, just issues with the actual bicycle.
So it's Aaron's fault. Keep your wife's tire full.
This is an ongoing battle. I'm fighting it every day. I think we're close to a permanent solution, though.
Okay. That's funny. Do y'all have outfits?
No.
No. I can't bring myself.
You need an outfit.
Y'all need matching outfits.
Nike doesn't make them.
Do they really not?
They don't. I can't get
jumpsuits, man.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know there was anything that Nike didn't make.
I know. They make the shoes, but I don't know. See, now we're talking about cycling. We shouldn't do
I'm
that.
okay. Yeah, this is good banter. Okay. All right. So, quality time is Aaron's.
Yes.
And then what do you think yours is?
Mine is definitely acts of service and words of affirmation.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's kind of me too.
I'm an acts of service truther over here too.
Yeah. All right. So Aaron.
Yeah, I thought Rachel was just gonna say that hers were acts of service. I thought that was pretty. That's
So she sprung on you words of affirmation too, huh?
And I didn't think that she would say quality time, which I guess is true. Your partner probably knows better than you do, I would imagine, or should.
That's interesting.
Don't say that.
Well, that is how I perceive that you like to receive love.
Yeah.
I think that's like the big one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I didn't recognize the phone thing as being like part of
No, it is when you read about
lexicon.
quality. When you read about quality time, because Brian was telling me this, it's very much about like no distractions and things like that. That was one of the.
It's just generally rude to text while someone's trying to talk to you, and like whether or not you love them or not. I think is just
it's a simple ask.
Don't do that. Yeah. Words of affirmation are kind of big, I think, to me. I don't know. I just
you like.
Yeah, okay. I gotta hear like purely lip service. I don't care. Just say it. Like, yeah.
All right. Me and you seem to be maybe a little in line with words of affirmation because that's a big one of mine. Okay, and then what do you perceive that Rachel's would be?
I mean, it's acts of service for sure.
Okay.
I do a load of laundry and she comes home from work and you should see like it's.
It's on.
It's like, she's like, this is the best husband
anyone's
makes me ever.
So happy.
See, and this is, so you're picking up that like she reacts in a big way to that. Back to your point about like, I feel like your partner knows best.
Yeah. Well, I come home from a 10-hour day at work without a lunch break and the laundry's done. Like, that makes me so happy. That's the thing I don't have to do when I get home.
And it's like, do you know that I just dumped them in a machine? Like, I didn't take them down to the creek and, like, wash them. Like, I put them in the machine and I pressed a button.
No, that's good, though.
Don't give it all away, Aaron.
Yeah, just own it. Yeah, I did that. One of the things that we talked about in our initial episode on love languages was how I think like the seasons of life that you're in can also make a difference. So like you're saying, like right now you're in a season where you're working a long shift and maybe that's for most of your life, who knows, or maybe it shifts down the road, but that probably has a big thing, to do with why acts of service is huge for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Brian, any input here? You're just kicked back.
Of course I'm kicked back.
This is how he podcasts, by the way.
Podcast. I'm curious, how has this... Now, y'all are in the infancy of marriage. How do y'all use these to get out of conflict?
Or do you consider it when you're, like, post-conflict? That's one of the things that we talked about.
I'll give you the example first. So, when we have conflict, Darcy is big on words of affirmation. I struggle with that. So, in the last episode on love languages, she talks about how she sometimes has to write my apologies for me, and then I have to vocalize them back to her so that we can move on.
I also feel like, because I've talked with several people about this, and they think that's really funny, and I just feel like I should clarify that I haven't actually drafted on paper your apology for you.
Because it sounds like you have.
You've drafted it in your mind and told me. To be fair, I think you've just told me my apology and then asked me to say it back in my own words.
Does he apologize sometimes and you're just like, actually?
Yes. Yeah.
Just tread lightly, Aaron.
He does. Because he's just like very nonchalant. I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay, let's move on. And I'm like, no. No.
See, the problem for me is when the conflict's over, it's over. Like, okay, we had a little scuttle. Now we're over it. Let's eat dinner. And to be fair, like I'm making light of it, but seriously, this is where it comes into play. My spouse needs the words of affirmation, and so I need to use that. So I'm just curious, like, as an example, if y'all are in a little tiff, whatever, y'all are still in the puppy love stage of marriage. Shoot,
we act like we're.
I know, no, we still are too. Yeah, we're 6 years in. But is folding the laundry like a key to success if y'all are?
See, I don't think that
like a way out.
Conflict.
I don't think that I could get away with that because then I feel like it's just I'm transparently trying to end the conflict without fessing up to.
Well, I'm not saying it's the only thing you do, but like I said, for her, she doesn't get the closure till we do the words of affirmation. I can. That's like your number one way out.
Yeah, no, but
I don't feel like it's resolved.
With the apology, you have to take ownership of something that you.
Yes.
I don't mind being the primary person talking about this because I'm the person that pretty much causes all the fights. Like that's fair.
Just go straight to the source, right?
Thanks for admitting it now.
So, I don't know. I couldn't just be like, I didn't say, I never said like, oh, I screwed up, please forgive. Like, you have to say that. I can't just like, I hope this pile of folded laundry will suffice. Like,
it's not that it's the only thing you do, but
it's more on like, post-conflict, there has to be kind of a reconnection, I feel like.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so not saying that like you maybe express your love language and then that itself is the apology. That's more on like, like you're saying, you kind of have to actually hash that part out. But the reconnection, it's good to probably think about the love languages of your spouse. Consider them.
Don't look at me so hard while you say that.
Yeah, you got to be like, I messed up. That was my fault. Sorry about that. I love you.
Yeah.
Forever.
I will give Aaron a lot of credit here, though. He is very good post-conflict with words of affirmation. He is very quick to recognize that he did cause this argument.
That's good.
Yeah.
Props to you, Aaron. And it's not that Brian doesn't do that. I think Brian just does it more like, no, I'm sorry, you're right. And then
I'm just ready to move on.
And he is just ready to move on. And I'm like, okay, but do you know where I was coming from? Like, do you understand? I just want to go so much more in depth. That's the thing. So, and I do at least also recognize that about myself. It's not like Brian is flawed and I'm not. So I do recognize that I can.
We won't bring any of that up on the podcast, though. We'll keep that offline.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I guess like early in a marriage or whatever, but we don't fight about things that are like actually important, you know? Like
no, that's what we talked about. Most of the fights are all trivial things.
Yeah, because I don't know. I hope no one's listening to this and they're like, oh, wait 15 years or whatever. But like,
No.
We've thought the same thing. We'll have fights, but to date, I don't think we've ever had any real, like, not what you see on TV, right? Like,
yeah,
like we're never gonna fight about, like, if I'm like, we should spend money this way, and Rachel's like, well, actually, I think we should do this. I'll be like, yes, that's fine. Whatever. Like, you're you're better at that than me. So like, that's cool.
No, and things will definitely come up. Like, I can think of a few that we've had.
oh
no. No, but I also do think that couples are different. Like, I can think off the top of my head of some couples that actually enjoy.
Well, some people like arguing.
They
and
like
stuff
the
like
arguing, like it's part of their deal. It's not part of ours, really, at all.
No, it's all different. One thing I'm curious on. So, from the dating to the marriage, did it take any time to? I mean, you're also figuring out. I mean, it's like the whole point of dating, but these love languages actually do come up. Did they change for either of y'all, or did you kind of just find what works and that helped lead you to marriage?
I think Aaron definitely has had to learn that mine is acts of service.
Yeah.
Like, I have a great story from after we first moved in together.
Oh, yes.
We lived in that apartment downtown, and it was you had to walk up this flight of stairs the second you open the door, and I came in, I heard the dryer going, and, like he said, I just light up when I think he's doing laundry, because obviously I am typically the person that does it. So it's nice that, that has been lifted off my plate. And I hear it going, and I walk into our bedroom where our hamper is, and I notice that it's still full. And so I go out to the living room. I'm like, Aaron, why is the dryer going, but the hamper is still full? And he was like, oh, well, I ran out of underwear, so I just washed my underwear. That was probably one of our biggest fights in our relationship. Because I was like,
that's funny.
I'm not like, nope, that's not how this is going to work.
I don't know if it was much of a fight.
Oh, it was for me.
No, it was mostly me just receiving a tongue lashing. A fight implies that I responded. I didn't.
Yeah, no, you definitely learned, to apologize, admit you're wrong.
We all go through that.
Yeah.
And learn that, okay, if I'm going to do laundry, it's going to be everybody's. It's not just going to be your underwear.
Mm-hmm. Hey, no, that's a good thing to learn early on.
I think for me, I feel like mine are pretty well established or whatever. I was in a long-term relationship before I was with Rachel, and there was like a lot of conflict there. And so, like, I guess if those things are valuable, it's like valuable in the way that, like, it's like you learn how to make, or like how to, like, oh, I remember 10 years ago when I did that. I'm not going to do that again. And, or I wasn't being loved in the way that I want to be or whatever. So now I know much more clearly, like, how I want to be. Yeah.
And when okay, so let's talk about this. Is it your natural disposition? So what were we saying? Aaron, yours is words of affirmation.
And then Rachel said quality time, which I didn't know, but I guess is probably true.
Yeah, that's probably true. So is that like are you kind of natural to that, like, as in like showing your love that way, or do you kind of have to work at it?
It usually comes pretty naturally, but sometimes, I mean, sometimes I do have to work at it a little bit. Like, I will admit I'm kind of bad about, I just got off a long shift. I want to play on my phone.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, we're going to sit down and we're going to talk to each other right now. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah. So you do have to be like cognizant of that.
I do have to like at least have a moment where I'm like, okay, no, I have to like make sure I am fully present in this moment.
Yes.
Or you might freak out. So I don't want that to happen.
Aaron's face. Yeah, we talked about this a little bit on the last episode. One of Brian's is acts of service and gifts. And the reason we got in such a little fight the other day about it is because I was like, I don't do that, I feel like. So that's a problem. But
you do it in your own way.
I do, thinking about it since then, there are things that I do. But this is where it is good to have the conversation and probably have it regularly, because I do think they can kind of change.
Well, see, like one thing we found out, so acts of service is mine. And Darcy is words of affirmation and physical touch. And those are the two bottom ones for me. But what is ironic about it is, so I give her what I'm looking for, which going through all of this, like we noted, I'm going to work on words of affirmation and physical touch, but it is just kind of funny. I think some of your natural disposition is just what you are. That's what you're going to do at first. And we talked about as your relationship grows, like Darcy may not like, acts of service isn't high on your list, but you have learned to appreciate all the things I do for you. And now even more so that we've done all this, you recognize as like, that's my love language to you. And so that's where I told all of you, it's confusing. There's what you do, what you want, and how you think your partner wants.
Yes. Yeah. It's complicated.
So are women.
Yeah. But yeah, and I think over time, I think regular conversations are good about it if things are changing. And one of the things that I've thought about since is like, because I feel like Brian starves out physical touch sometimes, and I think that's why it's bigger on my, like higher on my priority, because whenever he does do something, I'm like, oh.
It's a truly shrewd move, Brian.
I don't know if anyone should take notes on that or not, but stepping outside of what you normally do, even if it's like, so clearly Rachel likes acts of service, but if you were to like write her a note or something at some point, something out of the norm, that would probably still be impactful too, because
we did say no matter what your number one is, all these things are kind of ever changing, and most of us do use all of them.
Yeah.
Just some more than others.
I think that acts of service too is like, I mean, a lot of times this just ends up being laundry or cooking dinner or like stuff that needs to get done anyway. You know what I mean? So like, I don't know, if you're in a partnership that you're happy in or you care for the person or whatever, like, well, I don't know. In our house, like, everybody sort of pulls their own weight. There's not,
set chores.
Chores are not defined by gender
as
much as they're defined by proficiency, I should say.
Like, fair.
Yeah. It's good.
I also think that like one thing about like love languages and stuff to realize that's important is like it can change just based on like, sure, it can change like the further you go on in your marriage and everything. It also can just change by day depending on what is going on in your life. Like,
oh, I found that out.
I mean, recently, like we mentioned to y'all earlier, like we lost our pet recently. It was my cat of 11 years. It was very, very difficult for me to go through. And Aaron was very good about recognizing like the little moments where he could just tell like I needed a hug or, just little things like that where it's like, that's not always super high on my list, but like in those moments it was. And like, I think being able to like recognize like your partner needs something that's not always high on their list is important as well.
And that's what I brought up to Brian the other day. I was like, I think physical touch is a little higher on my list than I gave it credit for before because I just want a hug.
Told me that in the middle of a wedding we were at.
No, I didn't. It was when we were back, wasn't it?
No.
I don't know. Anyway, okay. Final thoughts from anyone? We're all looking at Brian. All right. Well, appreciate you guys coming on and chatting about love languages a little bit, giving us a little perspective from, you're not newlyweds anymore, but that category of 5 years or less is what we'll put you in. So,
thanks for having us.
Yes, we'll have you on for some more. We wanted to do maybe a little Brian and Aaron banter here on the Astros, but I don't know that would stay very appropriate. So
it's not a good year for that.
It's not a good year for that.
We're going to have to spin that one off.
Yeah, maybe another day. So, all right. Thanks, y'all.
And now, finally, we're going to get to the veterans that everyone's been waiting for. The people who maybe have used love languages more than the rest of us. We've got Marty and Lori Mosher joining us today.
Yeah, thank y'all for joining us. So go ahead and, for those that don't know, because we do, believe it or not, we do have some listeners that are outside of Brenham. So tell us just a little about yourself and how long you've been married.
Well, great. I'm Marty. Lori's over here. You can't see her, but you'll hear in a minute. And Lori and I have been married 44 years. Wow. 44 wonderful years.
Very nice. Very nice.
She says 42 wonderful years. And when I ask her, why not 44? She says, well, there's just a day here and there that add up to 2 years. And
yeah.
So
not bad. Not bad. Not a bad average there.
So, Lori, introduce yourself.
Yes.
I'm Lori Mosher, and I've been married to Marty for 44 years.
What a coincidence.
And it has been an adventure.
I'm sure.
To say the least.
I'm sure. So, Marty and Lori, y'all are obviously very involved with Cowboy Church. Tell us your roles there.
Well, right now I'm called teaching pastor. I was the lead pastor, but we're doing a pastoral succession plan because we've been married 44 years, and we didn't get married when we were teenagers.
Yeah.
And so we're getting older, and so we're planning to redeploy, not necessarily retire, but get out of the way for a younger generation. So I'm still the primary preacher there, but I no longer am the leader.
Gotcha.
We have a lead pastor, and then we have a young adult and media pastor. And Lori, tell them what you do there, because she's the...
I oversee Kids Jamboree, which is the children's program at Cowboy Church, and we have a lot of fun there. It's very exciting and fun.
And Brian and Darcy worked in that.
They did.
Years ago. So.
Yes, and some of the more humbling moments we're working with...
For sure.
We did the 5th and 6th graders one time.
Yeah.
And for a while, and man... There's some challenges there.
We found out we were not cut out to be teachers.
We were not cut out for that at that point. But no, it was fun. And me and Brian always talk, some of the better sermons that we've ever heard have come from Marty. So,
yeah, absolutely agree.
Really excited to have you guys here. And, we talked with Aaron and Rachel earlier, who are somewhat more on the newlywed side of things, been married less than 2 years. So we wanted to get some perspective from somebody with some more years under their belt together, successful years, at least 42.
Yes.
So talking about love languages, let's dive in here. Were y'all aware of love languages in the beginning of your marriage?
Probably not at the very beginning. I'm not even sure if the book was out at that point.
It's been a while.
But
yeah, I was thinking the same thing. What do you think?
But probably along the way, definitely.
Yeah.
Became familiar with that, and it is very helpful.
And we were pretty young, especially by today's standards. I was 21, and Lori was 23 when we got married.
Uh-huh.
So.
No, I was not ready for marriage at 21. I know that.
Me either.
I know when you got married. I was there when you proposed. And I was in on it. Steve told me what was going to be happening.
I was shocked. Okay, so, you may not have been familiar with the term love languages in the beginning, but I feel like kind of right off the bat, for me and Brian, we keep going back to during conflict and post-conflict. That's when I feel like some of the true colors are out there, and some of your own true needs really come more to the surface. So just talk a little maybe about your own love languages. I don't know if you want to talk for each other, say what you think Marty's is
I'll
or
let her
what
start
Lori's
because
is?
she was really into this afternoon and did really good about that. So tell them what you knew about our love languages or what you thought.
One of the things I did listen to your other podcast, and it was very helpful to me because I loved that it's not really in the box.
Yes.
Like you see the love language thing, and it's like, I'm not sure about this or sure about this, and it's not like that. I don't feel like it's like that, and I feel like Marty's love language is not one of the ones that's exactly listed.
Okay.
But
Interesting.
And he may disagree with me on this, but I feel like his real love language is me listening to him.
Okay.
And not just hearing him, but listening to him and understanding what he's trying to say. And he tried to explain that to me.
I think that's quality time.
I
if
think
you had
so.
to put it in a
Okay.
category.
I think that would be the one that you would.
That's the
loop
box
it
I'd
under.
put it in for sure.
Right.
If you have to put it in a box for sure, because I think the big thing on that one is the one-on-one, the no distractions. You're tuned in to each other.
In fact, you keep going on that, but we'll come back later maybe to the fact that she had to actually light a candle because I want her to listen to me too much, and it was too early in the morning. So a counselor gave us this idea that she could light a candle then when she was ready to talk in the morning.
And
Okay.
really, let me explain that a little bit.
Sure. Good idea.
It's we went to a counselor, and I said something that would really help me in the mornings is because we both work from home. Is he is an early riser, so he is up and he's already studied. He's done all kinds of things, and when I get up, he wants to share with me everything he's already done, and I haven't spent time with the Lord.
We need one of those for our kids.
Yeah,
And,
no
which
kidding.
It's harder, but
I don't think it'll work.
but I didn't want to be rude, and so I would get distracted, and then it's hard to get back
Yes.
into the Word or into prayer or whatever after I've been distracted. It's like I've already moved on.
Yeah.
And so the counselor just said, just light a candle, and as long as that candle's burning, then he knows I'm spending time with the Lord. And then when I blow it out, then it's free game. And you can actually do that with kids too.
You've given up on the candle too because
Yeah.
you trained me with the candle.
I trained him, so now I don't have to use the candle. Occasionally, I might have to get it out, but you can actually do that with
If
children.
a candle gets blown out, Marty just starts talking. I can't help it. It's ingrained.
It's my turn. But you can actually do that with your children as they're getting older, that you explain, this is the time that I have with the Lord. And when I'm finished, then
love that.
And so it lets them know that you're spending time with Jesus, and it lets them know that they're important too. And when that's
Yes.
blown out, and then there's a beautiful smell when that candle is blown out too. So it's a reminder to everybody. But that's a good thing.
I really like that.
I've
That's
never heard of that before. I like that a lot.
That's a really good tip. I was just thinking, with kids, one of the things now is, you have these fancy sound machines that are like, they have a
White
light
noise.
and you can switch what sound you're doing and everything. And one of the deals now that everybody's doing is you can change the light, or you can set it on kind of an alarm where it's like, the light is red until 6:30 when it's okay for them to get up. And that way, if they wake up in the middle of the night and they see that it's still red, it's like, nope, it's still nighttime. And I have threatened
And they're
to
prepared
get one
to
of
drive
those.
too.
I have threatened to get one of those because you're right. It can be like, I know when Clyde comes into our bedroom and it's 5:30 and I'm not ready for him to be up yet, it just starts everything off on the wrong foot.
Right.
So all of our examples always come back to us and our kids.
Always
Every
will.
single one.
We're in the
Always
thick
will.
of it. But I love that example.
So time,
Quality
quality
time.
time, which I consider that part of it.
Yeah.
Also going out hunting with me. Mm-hmm. Don't expect her to go in the morning,
Yes.
but going out hunting or taking her kindling, going to the golf course.
Okay.
Quality time.
Yes.
Going
Quality
on
time.
trips.
Mm-hmm.
We did talk about that you have to temper this. This might be helpful to people. You might edit it out if it's not. But what might be helpful is one way that you show love with the love languages is not expecting too much of that
Yes.
because the other person is having to, it's not their love language.
Yes.
They're having to work. Like you said, it can almost come off as fake, but it's
Yeah.
not faking. She has learned to like going out hunting, turkey hunting,
Yes.
and watch golf, but you can't expect or to travel. She doesn't and you also do change some.
Yes.
She likes to travel more, and I've tempered back. I mean, we just got back from a trip. I'd leave again tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the things that got me. I hoped these things would just stay, and I found out they change ever quickly.
Yes, they do change. We'll get into that, but before we go there, what do you think Lori's love language is?
Lori's is words of affirmation and acts of service.
Hey, that's me.
Yeah. What?
And anyway, I try.
Do you think that's kind of one of your natural ways, or no? You have to kind of work at it, put some effort in.
Because I'm a verbal person, I think that's pretty natural, and because I like to accomplish things, I think it's pretty easy. Easier probably for me to speak those languages. I sometimes think that I'm like maybe doing it too much, like it comes off as you're trying to get something or something like that, because I do like to do it. So
it's not too much.
I've learned it's never enough.
As a fellow words of affirmation person, pile it on.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Also, Lori's more introverted, and so she doesn't express as much.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I think this is coming across like the guy that's clingy. You know, that you don't want to be.
Yeah.
That it's clingy, because she doesn't always smile when you give her words of affirmation. I go, if you
She's
turn it up,
processing.
it's a smile. Yes. It's a smile, but if you kind of the country song, "She Don't Know She's Beautiful." I mean, there it is, right there. They wrote it for her. You know,
Yes.
so you tell her how beautiful it is, and she look at you like you're crazy. So.
Yeah. Well, we like to receive our love that way. Doesn't necessarily mean that's how we show it back.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, so we were talking about how they can maybe change over time, and how I think that when you know kind of how your partner expresses their love language to you, you can learn to appreciate that, because you can start to recognize that, okay, he's putting in efforts his own way, or she's putting in efforts her own way. So talk a little about how maybe they've changed over time, or you've, maybe I always say, like, I think that I said this in the love languages episode. I don't think that physical touch was high on my list. I think it kind of got there because this sounds negative, but Brian starves it out. And so whenever he does...
Just make it count when I use it.
Yeah. So whenever he does, reach over and hold my hand, I'm like, oh, okay. And so that shifted for me. I don't think it was something that was initially on my list. As well as, like, acts of service. I've learned to be an acts of service appreciator. We said this before. I'm very independent. I didn't need acts of service before, but it is definitely the way that Brian shows his love, and so I've recognized it, more as the longer we've been together.
I don't think you could make your own plate of food anymore.
No, I don't think I could. I haven't had to in about 6-ish years.
Well, kids will do that too.
Yes,
Also, that
that's
comes
true.
in the dynamic. It definitely changed some, and maybe slacks some during kids.
Yeah.
I think when you have kids, things are a lot different. When they're out of the house, it's just, you have time for each other. And I think when you're raising your family, you don't have as much time for each other, because you're pulled so much in other directions. And we're pulled in other directions, but not the same as children in the house with you all the time. And I think, like now, I feel like I'm just spoiled.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just totally spoiled. And I probably wouldn't have said that when we had kids in the house. I mean, Marty was good about a lot of things. And I said he shows all of the love languages in one way or another. But now it's like I am so spoiled.
Well, it's almost like you're dating again. You have to reconnect after that empty nesting phase.
And
she's spoiled but not rotten. Her dad spoiled her. That it didn't make her ungrateful or entitled. Her dad spoiled her, but not rotten. Treated, and she's spoiled in the marriage, but not rotten.
Yeah. No, I like that. And that is, so you bring up a good point too. And this is one reason that we wanted this dynamic of a couple that has already kind of been, you're empty nesters now, right? So one of the points that we kept making is that love languages are important post-conflict. Or at least for us, they're especially important post-conflict, because you're trying to reconnect as quickly as possible. And it can be difficult if you're trying to do it in a way that's not recognized by the other person. And so that's one point that we've made, in our previous episode, in this episode. But one thought that we had, and I don't even know if I don't remember if this made it onto the podcast or if this was just a me and you discussion, but we made the point that it's really in the reconnection, not even necessarily, you don't have to file under post-conflict. It's the reconnecting.
Yeah.
And so you're making a good point here about like when the kids are gone and your life has shifted, or it doesn't have to be kids going. Maybe you've moved to a new area, some kind of thing where your season has changed, your life has shifted, and you're trying to reconnect. That I think love languages play a big role in that reconnection. I just talked a lot.
You
rambled
just
on.
talked a lot.
I think it's good.
I
No, I think it's great.
Well, and I think that's
do.
essential. I think that's one of the things that's missing in a lot of marriages right now is you are going to have conflicts, and they often don't reconnect.
Yes.
They lose that connection, and you have to find the way to do it. And the love languages is a great way to know how to do that more smoothly.
Yes.
And that's one of the things I think has been a key in our marriage. Like Marty always wants resolution. Like we don't go to bed mad. We don't stay mad. We don't not talk. We don't do those kinds of things. And because that just lets things build and get worse. But I think partly is because we know how each other responds and we're respectful of that.
Yes.
And sometimes it means giving me more room because once he's over it and I'm not over it. But he knows me.
You've been there.
He knows me now and he understands. So he's not going to try the things that don't work.
Yeah.
He's going to do the things that do work, and it's going to make that connection come back quicker and stronger.
Yes. And to your point about like couples not communicating post-conflict or not reconnecting, that's one of the big things. I think you can, when you get into a conflict after you're married and everything, it can almost be shocking, like, oh, they're not as perfect as I may have thought, or I'm not as perfect as I may have thought. And
Not you.
I'm just speaking in general terms here. And so you view it like, well, I guess this is what I'm dealing with. I don't know. You can just view it as something that's like, oh, well, this is the new reality. And when it's like, no, you have the fight, whatever, and then you reconnect, and you do get stronger when when you have been successful. And I think you also have to kind of like soften your heart a little bit, or at least I do.
Definitely.
And be patient with it, and just know that that you're going to put the efforts in, and the reconnection is coming, even if it's not that day, that week. You'll figure it out. Just work at it. And that's what these love languages, I think, help do. Okay, Brian, let's hear some of your thoughts because I have been rambling on. Got any?
I was going to let Marty and Lori. So, Marty, we've heard from Lori's perspective here. How about how does Lori handle you post-conflict?
Yeah, let's see if we can get this right without having a conflict right here on the you can edit it
We
out.
caused one of these just learning about him, so
Yes. So
tread lightly.
see if it's correct. My problem in conflict would be, I thought I was wrong once, but I was mistaken. Mm-hmm. I'm on logic, and of course you can fool yourself, so you're convinced that you are correct.
Yes.
And it's important to me that things be correct, that they be right. But that's skewed because we have a sin nature. Even though we have a new nature in Christ, we have the old nature. And the old nature convinces you that you have every right to hold this position because it is logical.
Yes.
And so that would be my problem in the conflict, not giving up that this is right and I want it to be right. Maybe I ought to say what yours is, but
Go
maybe
ahead.
I'll not. Well, Lori and her mother both are the people that are most like Jesus that I've ever met, but nobody's Jesus, you know? And so they're both, surprisingly for quiet people, very stubborn. Is that
This
accurate?
is true.
And so Lori's would have nothing to do with the logic of it. She just would, I mean, even whether I'm right or
Just
wrong, I'm
hold
not even
fast,
trying
yeah.
to say. She would just hold fast and I think be slow to apologize for her part. And then I realized that part of that antiquated, but I think biblical leadership, loving leadership, is to go ahead and be first.
Yes.
And I usually do have to, but usually it's not before I've said 3 or 4 times. So I'm now going to apologize for what you did to me.
Does this
And
sound
by the way, I don't
familiar,
mind.
Yes, it does.
I don't mind if our church members hear this too. If I tell every young minister, if you're going to go in the ministry, you're going to spend the rest of your life apologizing to people for things they did to
Oh, man. Yeah, that
believe
is
that.
so true.
you. Well, your dad works at the church. So
Yes.
you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We talked about I don't know who I was talking. maybe you. We talked about we'll have to have y'all back on for like kind of a behind the scenes of what people don't understand about how a church operates. At some point, that would be very interesting.
And I wouldn't have been willing to do that a few years ago because I don't want them to hear it because then it's just whining.
Yes.
But now we're in a succession plan. So I've already planned out.
Hey, we'll schedule
when I ride
it
off
when
into
you're
the
out.
sunset. What I'm going to tell them they need to know for Troy and Cody is like this is the stuff. So anyway, we have very little of that in our church. I will say that. Very little of that.
I understand. But yeah, I'm the same way, Marty. Even if I'm wrong in the argument, I want to let you know where I'm coming from.
Why I'm not 100% wrong.
Exactly. And that was one thing that, so as Catholics, we'll go to confession, and that was a great point that the priest made. He said, don't come up here and try to explain, and give me the story behind your sin. You're trying to justify it. Just say it and own it. Yeah. And I was like, oh, wow. I think
you said that was real fun to do, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was tough, but I was like, he just spoke to me. That was
that
for me to
that
hear.
is a perfect biblical principle because it is. I don't want to go preacher on y'all, but it is true that we talk about the non-apology.
Yes.
And that you should just call the root of it, not go back through the travelogue, and certainly not go, well, I'm sorry I lost my temper, but you know how you get my back up. That's not confession.
Yes. And that's another thing with, conflict in couples because we're married. We're in it for, the long haul. And one thing that I've had to realize, too, is like, even if Brian doesn't give me the perfectly scripted apology that I have running in my head that I'd like to hear from him, doesn't mean he's not sorry. And it also doesn't mean we're not going to just move on from it. And so I should probably, for my own sake, just let it go.
I related to that scripted apology because I think sometimes Marty would like to script my apology, and he doesn't realize how difficult it is for me to even make the apology I just made.
Yes.
And I think that's another thing of knowing the other person is seeing how much effort they're putting when to them that would have been easy.
Yes.
Like for him it would be easy to apologize, but for me it's very hard. But if he knows how hard it is for me and I do it, that should mean something.
Yes. Yeah. No, that's a really good point. And it's interesting. This goes back to our personality test episode. So you two, Lori and Brian, are introverts, and Marty and I are very clearly extroverted. And so appreciating the differences in personalities is definitely something that I think plays into
a little bit. It's all connected.
Your relationship and love languages. Okay, last question here. Do you think that the secret has been kind of? Oh, I didn't ask this first one. Do you have like a go-to way of showing love for each other that is appreciated by the other? I'll give an example.
Yeah, give the example.
Yeah, so Brian, it can be like if he knows I've had a tough day or if we have had some kind of little fight or anything, he'll bring me a Hershey bar when he comes home. And that's like just the show of support, whatever. That's his kind of go-to way.
So now she knows she calls me with the kids crying so that I'll just stop and get her one.
By the way.
She doesn't have to ask for chocolate. She just lets me hear the kids.
So that's kind of like been his go-to. Do y'all have like a go-to?
Do we have a go-to?
I'm putting you on the spot here.
No, I don't have a problem with the question. I'm thinking it through. And it is different when you get older. I have said often I'm a jerk in recovery because, and I'm not making excuses for it, I'm just talking about reality, but when we were young, we didn't have any money. And I don't mean we didn't have any money.
Yeah.
Just didn't. And, I mean, sometimes $23 in the bank with 3 kids. And so also you didn't get flowers in H-E-B. You got them
from a florist.
At a florist, and it cost money. So Lori went without a lot of things like that would have been things that I do all the time now because we have some money, and they sell them in H-E-B.
Yeah.
And so, okay, well, like today, words of affirmation, and flowers can be words of affirmation even though they're not words. But what do you remember what I said to you today? or when I brought home it was yesterday when I brought home the groceries, wasn't it?
Yes, he said, "Do you know why I didn't bring you any flowers?" And I said, "Because I already have some.
Because
Because
when we
I
got
got some
home,
for Mother's Day."
Mother's Day, Brett, our son, had flowers waiting on him when we got back from New York visiting his brother and sister.
Very nice.
And so I just said that's kind of words of affirmation. Like,
Yeah.
I wanted to
I
stop
thought
and get
about
you
you.
flowers.
Right.
Yes. Yeah,
Right.
I thought about you.
And so I would think that, I mean, it's
Flowers
kinda,
is a good go-to.
but it's kind of humbling that she said all 5 of them, but it really is true. It's easier now because we're not so preoccupied with kids.
Yeah.
And so I do spoil her, and I like doing it. That's the other thing that's easier for me because words of affirmation come easily for me, and acts of service. Since COVID, I've done the grocery shop. She'd be glad to. It's not like she wouldn't do it, and I do the cooking. But she's a great cook, and it's really interesting because that's not my primary thing. But that's the other thing I wanted to point out. When you do it over and over again, sometimes if you're tired, it means a huge amount to me that she cooks
Yes.
a meal.
Yeah.
But I don't want her to do it all the time. I like doing it. And she cleans up. So I hate cleaning up.
Yeah.
It works.
So
Yes.
my go-to is just pretty much constantly words of affirmation, even to the point that I think I'm saying it too much.
Well, and I think what I try to do is do things for Marty so that they're convenient for him. Just like make sure his clothes are clean. If he's
Yeah.
going to play golf, everything is there. If he's going to go hunting, everything is ready. I try to do those things. And I try to do things that he hates. Because there's a few things that he hates, and it's not really that big of a deal. And one of them is the trash. He hates the trash. He hates emptying the little trash. He hates taking out the big trash, and it's no big deal.
Yeah.
But it's one thing that he doesn't have to do that he hates. And I think in a marriage, you find the things that the other person hates. And if you can do it without as much distaste
Disdain,
as
yeah.
they do, then do it for them.
I don't like anything that's maintenance.
Yes.
I want it to produce.
Right.
I'd
Yeah.
rather somebody else do the maintenance.
No, I like that. That's good. So I'm gonna. Do you have any final thoughts?
I'm good.
Do you guys have any final thoughts? Said it all.
It's pretty incredible what y'all are doing. I think it's great. And we did discover the love languages somewhere along the way and probably did them way back then. But a lot of it is just intuitive. After you've studied
Yes.
them, you're not sitting there thinking that this is the love language. You just kind of learn to do that. And I do want to add this. I don't think you'll edit it out, but if it's too long, you can. But I do think that even though this is not just a religious podcast, really all of this is virtually impossible without Jesus. It really.
Yes.
Oh, we laughed about that the other day, how almost every episode we've done, whether it's faith-based or more just real-world
Gardening or
application,
some
like
kind of
so
random
many of them all kind of, and it's true. We laughed about it because it's like, well, yeah, God's the center of everything. So, of course, everything
Yes.
goes back.
And
Whether it's your personality test, even our gardening episode, this, like, they're all going back to the same place.
And one of our other pastors says this, that we sometimes forget that one of the purposes of marriage, among several others, but one of the purposes of marriage is actually God uses marriage to disciple you, to make you
Yes.
more like Jesus. And
Yes.
so that's it, like actually it's a sacrament in the Catholic Church.
Right.
It's part of that
Right.
where, I don't think enough Christians see that having to apologize, having to forgive, having to confess, that's a big part of growing in Christ, and that it's worth it.
Yes.
That marriage is a part of that.
And one of our, I don't know if you'd call it like a tagline or something of this podcast is unpacking the world through a Christian lens.
Yes,
And so that's the thing, that even if it's a random topic like gardening or parenting or whatever, it all kind of, you're looking at it through your faith and your Christian lens. And one of the things that has occurred to me with all this talk of love languages is one, just how stinking complicated we are.
Right.
Right.
as people.
At least 2 on that side of the table.
Okay. And with how complicated and complex we are, it's hard not to believe in a God.
That's
when
right.
when you think about just how different and unique and complicated we are.
Yeah, I don't think aardvarks have this problem.
No.
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 No. And then the second thing is, a marriage is also a constant reminder of, the person that loves you most on this earth will still fail you at some point or another,
Right.
And God knows just how to love us perfectly. I mean, he's the only one. And it just kind of points to our, humanness down here. So, anyways, those are my final thoughts. I'm going to, before we let y'all go, though, and we forgot to do this with our
Yes, do
last...
it, though. This will be good.
Yeah. We forgot to do this with our last couple, Aaron and Rachel, on here. But we try to have, a recurring question that we ask all of our guests. And that is, what would you say has been a game changer in your faith? It can be some kind of epiphany that you had, or some practice that you started doing, or a sermon that you heard, and it can be something that dates back a long time ago that made a change, or just something recently that has made a difference in your in your walk of faith. And I'm putting y'all on the spot here, but go ahead.
I can give her a suggestion. Would it be dealing with fear?
It could be dealing with fear. I've actually had several epiphanies over the years of things that have happened that I feel like have,
progressed your faith and helped you.
Mm-hmm. And one was, this was probably been 20 years ago, but I realized, and I didn't identify this as fear, but I really had a fear of the future, or of making mistakes, or doing something wrong, and I just confessed that I went on a retreat, and I realized, it's just God just said, you are letting fear control you. You are not that means you don't trust me, because fear controls you. Because we would have opportunities maybe to move or to do something, and it's like, I don't want to move. I don't want to change anything. I want to keep everything like it is. And God just said, this is a sin, and you are letting fear control you. And I'm not saying I've never been fearful since then, but it has never had the hold on me that it had at that point.
You get a way out of it that way.
Exactly. It's like I can identify it. When it's coming, when I feel it, when I see it or hear it, I know it's fear, and I know it's from the enemy, and then I'm able to face it and not be conquered by it. And I think that was very instrumental in my walk.
Well, and clearly you've handed it over well, because I know y'all have kind of lived all over and
we have
and taken all kinds of leaps of faith. So,
and I think mine would be along those lines. I have sometimes said, I hope it's not true, but I've sometimes said that, I'm called to ministry and I'm in the ministry, and I think God did that not because of my abilities or stuff like that. Like I'm this great catch for ministry. It's really the opposite of that. But I think sometimes I suspect that he did it. It was the only way I would really live a good Christian life if I was a professional Christian, And so the amazing thing has been in that journey, because I was not fearful about that. Those kind
not
of
even
things.
careful at times.
But I would say, really looking back on that the spiritual marker has been, and I won't go into the story because that'd take too long, but even the way we came to Cowboy churches, there have been some times when you had to do something that looked not right. And what's been neat is to watch you talk about the change and growth. Because when you say that, we joke about not careful, but we didn't do those things. We didn't do things without seeking. We didn't make moves that were wrong. And we spent 3 months somewhere before we came to Cowboy Church, and this would be like a marker. There's twice that happened, but we were really convinced. We're not trying to be defensive. We know we didn't do anything wrong. We know we did the right thing, and that God will work it out.
Yes,
and that He will use it in some way. And when we didn't come to Cowboy Church, when backdoor people were asking us to, you were on the search team. And you even told me later that if that had happened, that would have been kind of, because the search team didn't get to do its job.
Right.
And God used that. But we spent 3 months somewhere else, But ironically, you see how she's overcome her fear, because I said, Lori, Steve Westbrook's calling me. Ray Lane's calling me. We don't have to go to South Carolina. That's a long way away. Move from our family and friends. I think Cowboy Church of Brenham would have us. And she was the one not fearful. And she said, I think we'd be settling to, not for the Cowboy Church, but staying here. I think we need to go on an adventure. She said that.
It's because God wanted us to let go. Because we went all in. We jumped all in. And in our life, God never lets us hold on to the next thing while holding.
Yes.
We
That's have to let go.
We have to free fall.
I'm not saying everybody should do
Everybody
that.
doesn't have to, but we have. That's what God has asked us.
I've been in situations where I had to resign with no job several times. And I counsel people not to do that.
Right.
And I even said to one guy, you've got 3 children. He was asking me about, because he was from there and about to leave. And I just said, no, you got 3. He did it anyway. And he free fall, and he landed on his feet. But I just said, you got 3 children, you don't need to do that. He went and sold cars for a while till he found the right church. So I would say that, it's tied up, and it might not relate to some people, but the principle should, even if they're not in ministry, that what's been the epiphanies or whatever is that you step out and the bridge will appear.
Yes. Yes. I like that. Okay, well, thank y'all so much for joining us today and talking about love languages.
Yes.
Well, I'm sure we'll have y'all back on for something, so thank you guys.
Well,
As we get more organized, we'll plan our topics
Don't get
better.
more organized, just keep the gumbo coming.
Yeah, we did have gumbo tonight, so. All right, well, thank y'all.
Thank you.
Man, I don't know if y'all got as much out of all of this as I did. I found it extremely interesting, honestly, hearing the perspectives from both Aaron and Rachel and Marty and Lori. That was... there's some stuff out of there I need to take for our house.
Yeah, and this is just our only way to have friends over right now.
Exactly.
To do something like this. So
Who
other
knew?
human interaction is really nice over here.
Who knew starting a podcast would actually open our doors into seeing people more? So
Yes.
Well, that was really fun. And once again, you guys at home, just kind of do the same exercises. As today is my anniversary, I have even thought about some of this in our own marriage, especially today, and take little tidbits out of this and use it for your life as well.
Yeah, there were some good tips in there. Lori's candle tip was a nice one I haven't heard before. So, yeah, good stuff there.
All right, that's going to wrap it up today. Next week, in honor of our anniversary, we're going to kind of do a recap of our marriage preparation and just things we
found useful, maybe not useful.
And it really is going to tie in a lot of the topics we've kind of talked about so far.
Yeah, I think so.
Have some personality, love languages, church, all the things. So y'all stay tuned for that. We're going to have that one come out for you guys next week. And as we, again, thank our interviewees for coming on the podcast. Now that we have unpacked for the second time love languages, you go discuss.